Hey guys, welcome back to the Tough Love Podcast with Dr. John O'Connor and Maddie C. Today we are talking about the importance of not duplicating yourself, but replicating a successful plan to build a business beyond yourself. Matt, what's going on, brother? Welcome back.
Not much. Good to be back. So I want you to dive right in the importance and the biggest difference of, building yourself as opposed to building a brand and a business.
With what I'm doing now in all the social media and marketing, I realize the importance of having that brand and generating influence with myself. But that has nothing to do with running businesses and corporations. And I wish that I learned that, that's that the Mark Twain thing we'll come back to.
Yep.
As far as dates, I wish I had that date of the why, that what should have happened probably 15 years ago was, at around 35, and now as an epiphany, have it at my 50th birthday on May 5th, that I'm like, I'm blessed because, I have a ton of energy. I'm ready. I got a great team around me. The team's getting better. But for it to be awesome, I started really deep diving, and I told you this, where I put myself into these podcasts with guys like, Hormozi and Bedros. And, I literally am listening to it and I'm screening myself against their questions. And I realized I'm like, yeah, one of one, I put myself in front of people and I impress them. I wow them. But what good is that if I have 3 centers because I can't be 9 a.m. in 3 places at the same time?
Yep.
And, I needed to be into that leadership captain role that my lieutenants are at each location with the same confidence, bravado, knowledge, and desire to succeed and help people. And I was blown away that, it had to take, having to unload freehold, reconsolidate and take a look at the different departments between, do we have physical therapy or occupational therapy, adding on acupuncture with Dr. Bays, which I'm excited to bring into the team. But you could plug this into any business. I'm sure this, and even sports, you see it when there's one great player.
Yep.
And you can't have a dynasty with just one person.
It takes the whole lineup.
Unless it's golf.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely. So, and it's not even so much scaling back in my eyes, working alongside you, Dr. Horowitz, and just the team at Velocity the last 2.5, almost soon to be 3 years. It's building the team as opposed to letting go of team members and locations. And
yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I was talking to a good friend of mine. Actually, we had him on the show, as you know, DJ Tenhove.
Yeah.
And, you want to be impressive and keep bringing realtors in or bringing in doctors or bringing stuff. But at the end of the day, that's overhead. And at a certain point, is it helping you, or is it better to look at it like, hey, listen, we might be better to be Navy SEALs and have a 5-man unit,
right,
versus a 20-man unit. Looks good on paper, but we have a ton of waste, a ton of distraction, a ton of, competing characters, if you will, fighting for attention as opposed to fighting for the main objective of being successful in their craft.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen that in my own practice. I know I had a therapist that I worked alongside. It was probably the best therapist I had ever worked with as far as personality, outcome, patient retention. And the minute I got busier and got healthier and the world opened up after COVID, we had 1 location open, then all of a sudden we had 3. That redistribution affected our working relationship. And, I didn't recognize it then, but, when you're spending so much time with somebody and then you're not, and especially if they're coming from a bad work environment, then all of a sudden you give them this Patch Adams experience. It was probably the ultimate downfall.
Yeah.
In, what caused her to move on.
Right. And I never even met him, but you guys talk about him so highly of him. I feel like I've worked with him.
Yeah. No, it's fact. And, but that's what I would say, so I think what I would do having the conversation with my younger self, I would have gotten to the rituals, routines with all my team members, like I'm doing right now with a company I work really super close with MedRay Laser. And, you know, I'm up probably about an hour and a half, but they both have young kids, and they're impressive guys, right? Both attorneys, jumped out into the into the medical technology space. But I'm like G.I. Joe to them.
Yeah.
Like here I am, and I have them by 10, 15 years, and I am pushing them to get up, go for a walk, get on the bike, get moving, because we need to be not only mental sales warriors, execute, but the physical component so that we can endure the stress.
Behind the scenes, same page.
100%. And, you know, I don't care whether it's, you know, Andy Elliott taking this approach or, you know, Ed Milet's probably one of the iconic figures there, or really any of these guys that I look up to in this space. The one thing that I would say is, you know, me as a former athlete, a professional trainer, you know, semi-pro basketball, all the things that I've done in the summer pro leagues and everything over the years, it's the competition.
Right.
And it's that, you know, once you realize it's you versus you and all the Kobe, Michael Jordan moments that you put yourself in and you think about, you know, business is no different. And keeping a strong body is really fortifying your mind, right? And clearing your mind, right? I know for us, I know you're up super early, get the dog out, get changed, have your protein shake it up, get to the gym. And then usually I'm thinking about, you give yourself about 35 minutes and then you hit me up with the first text, right? And I'm jumping the bit because I know you're going through that whole series, and I don't want to completely invade your you time. But, you know, I think it's one of those things that, you know, it keeps you dialed in. And you motivated me so much because one of the things that I had to overcome was the fear of the morning workouts when I got hurt, when you guys first were putting me back together. And, you know, the one thing that I would say that was like kind of a breakthrough was I kind of touched on it a little bit last summer. I was moving, doing some workouts with the crew outside, but now I don't fear it. I embrace it. And I realized it's like, you know, that motion is lotion, and that it empowers me and kind of releases my mind, and whatever aches and pains, I realize, hey, that's what they are. 50 years young.
Gets the body ready for the day.
And, you know, I do my cardio, I do some core, and, you know, getting excited about that. And I put it out there, and people are like, you know, why do you post every part of your story? I want to be the reason somebody took that extra step, made that extra, you know,
people need to see everything that goes on, not just the wins.
And, you know, some days I'm exhausted, and those are the days, you know, when you're feeling great, I expect you to crush it. But when you're exhausted, you know, we got back from a trip, you know, traveled all day, missed a flight, this and that, you know, I got up at 4:30 that day. You know, it was a day that we had to be packed, and, you know, I was up at 4, and I didn't sleep because 4:30 is weird how it's amazing. 4:30 and 4:45 jump.
In between time.
Yeah, it's an in between time. So I think I woke up at like 3:15, like one eye in it going, damn, I can't go back to sleep.
I know.
Right? So now I'm kind of meditating a little bit, or my version of it, trying to slow myself down, just thinking about how I'm going to in the day. And, you know, I would say that organizational set that I think everybody has to make that shift. To say, if you're in it, you have to make sacrifices. And if you want to avoid it, you're going to have crises that happen no matter what, regardless of how lucky and how blessed and how you prepare. But the one thing that I could say, looking at all of these people that I emulate, whether they're sports, business, you know, families, or life, you know, lifestyle, like life habits, is perfect practice prevents poor performance. But more importantly, when the poor performances happen, you know, you did everything you could during the battles of the practices when it was you versus you. Right. And in those moments, I'm like, you know what? Now, when I get a ding or something, I'm so excited because I'm like, look, you didn't do anything wrong. You know, you overdid it. You were feeling good that day. You know, and I started applying that to business and everything else, you know, and it was like, you know, and I say it to you, God knows you're my wailing wall a lot of times. And, you know, what I was centering on was, what can I do better? What can I do better? Instead of saying, what can I teach my team? So then instead of it just my pair of hands that I know I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and work, how can I take 10 sets of hands in the same hour and be 10 times more productive and have 10 pair of hands doing it and 10 minds and 10 sets of ears listening? So I think that that's super important.
Absolutely. And you nailed it right there. I want to dive a little bit deeper in you right now, because you always speak about it, but you've never really touched on the huge points with this facility. Freehold, your baby, your dream, you've always wanted it. We're in the works of working something out to where by the end of August, it'll be gone. We'll be down at 2 locations. You just talked about sacrifice. What does it feel like, and how does it feel to sacrifice your most important asset right here?
You know what's funny? When I was 27, 28, I was coming back from Atlanta. Jessica and I were just in the engaged process. We weren't married yet. We were kind of lost coming here. And 9/11, you know, it wasn't COVID. It was the global crisis then was 9/11. So there was basically a quiet war that went with it. And we had lost friends from Rutgers and friends of friends' parents and everything. And so we struggled for a good amount of time trying to get our identity because we were living like demigods there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know, she was cheering for the Atlanta Falcons. I was in the entertainment business doing special events. And where am I saying that? We had a home, we had comfort, we had status.
Right.
And we had to come here and grind. I was driving out to a restaurant that got taken down in Hurricane Sandy. Matt Hatter work in. I was volunteering my time with one of my AU coaches. I was doing everything and anything I could to scrap and grind to establish a name and a brand and have money in my pocket where, you know, we would be doing these dumb things, hosting events by just putting my name on it and walking out with $3,000, $4,000 cash in a night.
Right.
And now I'm working so hard with this on paper doctorate and I am broke. And so when I started thinking about like the vision board and the secret and all stuff that we would, you know, look at back then, I looked at some of the competition was out there and I was like, I want to have a gym. I want to be this super doc guy that's healing people, transforming them, training them. And, you know, life happens. And probably where that should have happened was in my late 30s.
Yeah.
Right. And I was a super freak, right? At that point, I had every athlete in Monmouth County. We had a decade's worth from 28 to 38. We literally had anybody that was anybody because they knew if you were going to go down Hard Work Boulevard, you had to pay the toll and go through me. And, you know, and every one of those kids that came in and paid that toll on the Garden State Parkway, you know, it was, you went through hell and you came out the other side. You were all shore first team, all state. I had a 2010 National Player of the Year. And those athletes gave me that credibility that said, I want to have this mecca of a center. Now, looking back and you're writing your book and looking out, I just had a milestone birthday at 50.
Right. Looking
back at 60 as we're going to unload this building in less than 4 months or less, could be in a week.
Yeah.
I think it teaches us a lot of stuff. I think it teaches you that, you know, this is something that, you know, somebody very special to me is always saying, like, think about all the good things you've done.
Yep.
Think about all that you could be grateful and thankful for. And, you know, and she's been with me a long time. And, you know, so when Jess would say these things to me, I would say, I can't really think of anything right now. And, you know, I think that resonates more because I hate losing. Right. And I, at first looked like Freehold that it was losing, but then I said to myself, you know what? Yeah, we lost. Right. But just like you see Harbaugh moving to San Diego from Michigan or wherever these guys are going, but you don't lose. You just are the person that now holds the pen and you're writing a new chapter.
Right. And it's also, an accomplishment.
Yeah. And that we were able to do it.
Yep.
And that I remember like it was yesterday that the banks were amazing with us. And again, it could be an argument. It could be a blessing and a curse at the same time. They were like, oh, you need $300,000 done. You need $600,000 done.
Yeah.
You know, on a signature and a text, you know, and, you know, I look back at that and I'm like, God, we were crushing it and we went for it. And I really think when I listen to all these businessmen that use a podcast like this one to broadcast their failures, their successes. Like I was listening today and Beedros was talking about, you know, 6 years working for, I think he's a West Coast guy. So I think he was working for Disney Disneyland or whatever the one
Yeah,
that's
it
out
was.
there. And that, he wanted more.
Yep.
And even when I got freehold, it wasn't the perfect way we acquired it. And it had restrictions like no medical, no zoning, this and that.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, you know what? We learned. We learned we lost money. That's the commonsensical thing. But we learned not to settle. And that even though we made it into this amazing beast, and it is by far one of the nicest facilities in the state,
Probably
and what it does,
holy-
top 5, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's plenty of people out there like a Sportica or any of these other businesses that they thought the same thing.
Right.
And the reality is thinking isn't enough. Hard work is hard. And the repetition that should have went into that, I slacked on, and if it wasn't always me going back to that point of saying, instead of trying to replicate myself and building out the model and putting time into that,
Right.
do I think there'd be a better outcome? Yes. But you know what? There wouldn't be Velocity HP coaching. I wouldn't have the relationship
it.
with AJ and Josh
That
from
was our
MedRay Laser
first
Technology.
encounter with Josh there. Actually, our first coaching event.
Absolutely. And the unique thing with that was that the pivot was like understanding that second why,
Yeah.
right? The importance of it, right then and there. That with healthcare changing, with just a natural progression of aging, like I feel great. People come up at 50, like, God, you're fit. We were just away and, we looked like we were in our late 30s. And, and the reality is that what I would say were transformational or inspirational was that I felt blessed to say, you know what? Yeah, we had a bad stretch,
Yep.
but you know what? And there's going to be some, there's more to come.
Droughts. There's going to be droughts all the time.
And, and at the end of the day, you get one life. And, and I've said this before on previous podcasts, but I as the older I get, and regardless, so I try to look younger than you.
Yep.
It is so critical to always want to learn and improve. And like me, always competing with you, like saying gym wise, do I have movies good? It's like, no. But if I'm a little better than I was yesterday, and more importantly, I show up, I know I'm that much better than the person that I'm competing with.
That's sleeping in.
That's sleeping in, that's not doing it, right?
Without a doubt.
And I was so mad at myself. I get on the scale now because I'm more in bodybuilding than I am in, athletic performance. And it's not about if someone says, well, you sit at 5%, no one feels bad for you. I go,
right.
Yeah. But I shifted my diet and I'm at 5%. So it's mostly muscle.
Yep.
And that in being away and work and got a little hectic and I lost my discipline and the repetition of the food prep. And I was cheating and really lying to myself. That was 10 pounds in 10 days, pound a day. 5% body fat.
Yep.
And when I got on the scale, at first I was like, and this is the scale of life, right?
Yeah.
This is that look in the mirror scale, right? So I'm
Smile
feeling,
or frown.
yeah. And I'm having that David Goggins moment where I took the Post-it and slapped it up there and said, do better.
Right.
Right. And then it was like, Sunday rolled around yesterday and there were 30 meals grinding.
Yep.
And, do I got to be creative? Yeah. I would tell everybody out there just food prepping as I'm looking into the camera and, we're definitely gonna do a collab with Omaha Steaks. What's the one flavor that we love? Linders.
Well,
I think it's LINDERS. Yeah. Awesome flavor. Texas pizza. We're all coming for all of you guys.
Yep.
And but the funny thing about it is it's like when you're eating that much food, the same thing,
you need it.
You better be creative
Yeah.
because I don't care what anybody says because I'm one OCD and easy do the same thing every time kind of guy. And it's hard.
Right.
It's hard to stay in. So you want to motivate people because that's what I look for is like, I want to see our friends, like our friend Carl, that's, as a patient and friend. And, he's got me by a few years. And I'm like, dude, you motivate me.
Yeah.
I know you look to me for youth, but I look ahead of you, say, wisdom, man, this guy stays healthy. He looks fantastic.
He never has a bad day.
No, he's always smiling and grinding.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the biggest thing. My take on that, I'm going to touch on this real quick, is never look back. It's always looking forward.
Yeah.
What's to come in the future. We look at freeholds. Granted, in a few months, could be a few weeks, it's going to be gone, but it's not. You have to think about what it's going to be for the next person, and the thousands of people that's going to touch. You guys have created something truly amazing, and it's always going to be there.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And the funny about it is, in the morning, Monday through Friday, I spend 20 to 24 hours from Monday to Friday.
Right.
Before I start work.
Yeah.
That's how early I'm up, working on my mental psyche. And when I'm my best and we have our best days, what I try to do is listen to the analytical podcasts, the ones that are going to force you and challenge you to think.
Right.
And then I go into my big three that I strongly urge my listeners to go into. Dwayne Johnson's got a 23-minute one on, what's that? The green one. It's escaping me, but one of the podcast things to look at, right?
Okay. Yeah. You could take a peek.
Spotify.
Yeah.
Right. So perfect. So with the Spotify one, it's 23 minutes with him.
Yep.
And he says something, when I think about where I am right now, is keep the hard times out in front of you.
Yep. And
then when I think about one of my favorite actors in Hollywood, and no disrespect to The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, but I got to go to my man Denzel.
Yeah.
And I will never forget meeting him when they were filming Remember the Titans.
Yeah, you were telling me
in
about
Atlanta,
that.
And how special of a person he was.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his career. And he was talking about, if you're going to fall forward.
Yep.
Fall where you can see where you're landing, and don't go backwards.
No, if you fall on your back, you're done.
Yeah. And I think about that now, where I'm like, what's funny is at first you could easily get into those pity party modes.
Right.
And, I spun it and said, you know what? We have to take a different approach here.
Yeah.
And being able to attack these opportunities that we thought we had one person. We were so excited to have this one little company come at us, and I'm sure they would take them back. Well, now there's 4.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey guys, I don't care who takes it, quite frankly. We know we built it out. Our opportunity is to make sure that, much like any car, any house I ever sold, is you get better than you found it. And whoever comes in here and says, wow, this place was amazing, that I look back and say, you know what? It didn't work for me, but I really hope whoever goes in there next is so thankful for the work we did.
Yep.
That they look at it like it was a blessing, and whatever they paid, we gave so much.
Right.
We gave our heart and soul and put it into there. And for that I'll look back and always be thankful for having that opportunity to have young kids, young women and kids, parents, or adults, whatever is going to be in there, benefiting.
Yep.
From what we took a risk on.
Legacy.
That's it.
One word.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think, closing out today's podcast, about learning from the past and staying consistent, and just like you said, creating a legacy. But that comes with the wisdom that happens. And unfortunately, as I'm getting older, I realize wisdom usually is learning from your mistakes, right? And not making the same mistake twice, and if you do, then maybe it's more not so much a mistake. It's you facing the reality that you're really looking for a change.
Right. And
that might be, to close out the podcast, what we thought today with the quote to say the 2 important dates: the day you were born and the day you figure out your why.
Yeah.
By Mark Twain. And I think now, as we're starting to build momentum with the podcast, with the events, we have David Bryant from Bon Jovi next Tuesday at Cousins, and we have some amazing guests coming up, and we have some out-of-state podcasts lined up, and the national coaching events we have lined up, all the way through,
really
winter 2024.
Yep.
It's telling me that I'm not supposed to just be in Monmouth County. You, myself, I'm sure there's gonna be a couple more guys in our team, team members, guys or girls, is that greatness is ahead of us. We didn't step back or fall back. We're going to fall forward, and really we're going to land in the sprinting position, and we're going to come out running.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, listen, from adversity to, from triumph, like I said, today was about, talking about the shift in freehold, our property, and what we thought was something that was a hardship, but I think it's going to wind up being a blessing in disguise. And, so don't look at everything like it's about losing. Look at it like sometimes it's, it's addition from subtraction. We're going from 3 practices to 2, but I feel like we're going to be bigger, we're going to be stronger, we're going to be more united, and it's all happening because we had to lose something. So thank you so much for joining us today on Tough Love Podcast. We'll be back again next week, and God bless, be well, and we'll see you again. And again, listen, if you find value in our podcast, sharing it, leaving a positive, remark or comment is so valuable. Sharing it to friends, or subscribing. These things all have great value. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.